Okay, so I guess you all recognize this character from the movie Blade Runner. She's like the perfect AI system in the sense that if you would interact with her, you wouldn't notice the difference between her and a real human being. Now, we're really very far away from this type of entities, and I'm not even talking about the biology part, just the brain. But what's really interesting is that if we look at some of the challenges that we have in front of us to reach that, we can learn quite a few things of the people and skills that we need in our teams to live in a world that is going to be more and more embedded with AI. For example, mathematicians, and this is not future, it's present. When I was in college, I was studying math, and honestly, I thought that if I wanted to work in what I was studying, I had to become a teacher, which I didn't want to. But today, thanks to AI, there are lots of people who are having jobs thanks to in mathematics, and it's one of the most wanted profiles in any team that is investing in innovation, in artificial intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not the only ones. There are more. For example, one of the topics that has been in the conference and in the last 2 years all around is AI fairness. So how you make AI systems make recommendations, whether it's to put somebody in jail or to give somebody a credit, which are fair. And there is certainly a technology aspect on that regarding how do you detect that the data is not biased. And if you detect it, how you can correct it. But even if the data was absolutely perfect, no bias, everything fine, you would find many situations in which the system, to make one decision or another, it would have to be based on the ethical perspective that you have. What this suggests is that it would be good at some point to include in our teams philosophers. So people who can create, let's call it a moral operational framework in which the system would work. A moral operational framework, which, by the way, is going to be different from country to country, because at the end, morality is something that is very linked to culture. And what might make a lot of sense here in Spain perhaps doesn't make a lot of sense in Japan, for example. So this is the type of skills that possibly now, and for sure in the future, we'll need to add in our teams. More examples, language. Another challenge of AI is human language. Human language is really complicated. 1 year ago in IBM, we created something called Project Debater. Project Debater is a system that can debate with people based on data and on a specific topic. So the project on itself, it's interesting because I think we all can imagine situations where it would be good to have debates with facts and not emotions, which is what this system does. But really, the purpose was not that one. The purpose was really to advance in understanding how to manage human language, which basically means that if you're creating projects that involve a system that has to talk to people, perhaps you should consider bringing on board people with skills on linguistics or on psychology. Because at the end, the way that you engage with people can make a lot of difference in whether they really come to you or not. And this might make a business difference at the end. More examples. Today, AI is very good at doing very specific things. So it's very good, for example, at doing image recognition, okay? Or playing a game, or perhaps recommending you a movie. But it's really very bad when it has to do with doing things that involve different tasks that have to be coordinated. AI is very bad doing that today. So another good idea, possibly, is to bring in our teams people with cross-domain skills. So people, like an octopus, can touch at very different fields and coordinate things that today AI cannot do. So mathematicians, philosophers, linguists, psychologists, people with cross-domain skills, all these are pretty obvious. But I want to go a little bit more far away. Let's talk about the really, really difficult problems that AI has, those problems that a little kid would solve very, very easily and are really, really very hard for an artificial intelligence system. For example, learning with small data. So if I have a kid, small kid, and I tell him, this is a clock, he will say, OK. And if afterwards I tell him, that is also a clock, with 2 or 3 examples, he will understand what a clock is, and he will recognize it quickly. Now, current AI systems, if you want to train them to recognize an object, you need hundreds, if not thousands, of images. So imagine your children that you have to show them 1,000 images of a lion for them to learn what is a lion. I mean, humanity would be extinct many, many years ago, really. Or, for example, think about this picture. If I ask a little kid, a little bit older than the previous one, what's the shape of the object that is closer to the bigger cylinder? That's very easy. It's a cube. They would immediately do it. Now, for an AI system, to make this type of not very complex reasoning, it's tremendously difficult. So what all this is telling us is that we have in front of us some challenges which are tremendously difficult and will require a lot of creativity and a lot of looking at things from different ways. And, well, reality is that all of us are creative. All of us are born with creativity, you, me, everybody. But there are some people who are especially good at being creative. That guy here is Lord Byron. That's Virginia Woolf. You probably recognize Vincent van Gogh and Edward Munch. So all of them tremendously creative people. And they all had one thing in common. They had something that is called a bipolar condition, what formerly was known as maniac depressives. And there are many, many studies that relate this type of condition with being very, very creative. And there is a neuroscientific reason for that. So our creativity is in our right-hand side of the brain. It's in everybody's there. But our left-hand side of the brain inhibits creativity, inhibits the right-hand side. So people who have an alteration in the way of working of the left-hand side of the brain stop that inhibition, or at least mitigate it, so creativity grows in this type of people. And you would say, okay, fine, but this is art. Here we are talking about business. Well, there are also studies that say that people with an autistic condition, when they are presented a problem that has to be solved in a creative way, they come out with fewer ideas than the others. But those few ideas that they come out with are far more creative and far more original than anybody else's. So I'm not trying to say that these people should be necessarily the ones who really solve this really tremendous challenge that we have in front of us for AI. But if they are in a team, they can inspire the others by the way they look at things from different perspectives and the way they look at reality from a different perspective. So at the end, what all this is telling us is that in a world that is going to be filled more and more with AI every day, what we need is teams that are diverse. But not just any kind of diversity. We need diversity that includes skills that usually we don't relate very much to business, and even people that we possibly think that cannot make good contributions, when in reality, they can't, and a lot. Thank you.